Hello again, art friends. In this video, I'm completing the very last page in my collage sketchbook. So for this one, I decided to do 4 small collages instead of my normal 2 collages on the page. And I want to do every one a little bit different. So I started with some brighter colors, this pink with some black on it. I just started adding some pieces. Black is a really strong color, so I wanted to be a little careful it didn't get too dark. But the pink here is really bright, or at least I have another piece of paper that's a really bright pink. I've also sped this up because I want to do 4 of them, so if I had kept this at normal speed for all 4 of these, it would take forever. So I'm just trying to work through getting a layout for this first one. And you'll see that this first one is problematic, meaning it takes me much longer to do this one, and then the other ones once I get going, I get through those much quicker. I also had these numbers that I had done on the gel plate from a stencil that I had. So I thought adding those might be might add a little bit of interest. So I'm trying to work those in. I also had this pattern. Since there's dots on the other piece there, maybe adding something with some round shapes would fit better in there. But I'm just not sure. So I keep playing with this for a while. You'll see. I have the other writing there. I keep trying different things. So finally, I just decided to start with the pattern pieces first because it sort of brightened up everything. The black seemed to be getting too dark, so I thought I would try working with the pattern pieces first. So I'm just trying to find a good location for those, and then I'll just use these as my base pieces. I also wanted to trim off the numbers so that they were kind of bleeding off the collage, just to make it a little bit more interesting. So now I'm just going to put these down, and I'm just using Liquitex matte medium and my silicone shaper tool to just get those on there. I finally just decided I was just going to commit to getting these on there, and then I would just have to respond and work with this. Sometimes when I'm having problems getting them together, I just pick a piece and I put it on there, and that's just what I have to start with. And then it kind of gets me going. All right, so now I want to bring back in those other pieces, or some of the other pieces. I liked that pink with the purple that was there. And I like the black, sort of the stark black against those really bright colors too. So I'm going to try to add that in. It may just need to be a smaller bit than what I originally started with. Now I probably could have just left it there. That's pretty balanced, and it's kind of fun and interesting with a bunch of white space. But I really like this super bright pink piece. So I'm going to try to add that in somewhere. See if I can make it work. Now I'm going to use my Liquitex gel for this because these pieces are on thicker paper. So sometimes the matte medium, which is more liquidy, doesn't really stick them down really well without you sort of holding them until they really dry. So this is just a thicker medium. So I think having that little pop of color there is kind of nice. And then I thought I would add, since I have a little bit of white space, a little bit of something that looks like writing. Now this writing I actually did on, I believe it's on deli paper, so it doesn't go completely transparent with the medium, which is a little bit unfortunate. But again, since this is just my sketchbook, I'm not too worried about it. I also, again, wanted to just cut off the end, so it was had a little bit more interest. I feel like it needs a little bit more of the dark color of the black. So I'm going to add just a tiny little piece down kind of in the lower left. So I just decided to move on to the next collage and just leave that one sit. Sometimes it's good to just leave them and then come back. So I have this really cool piece of paper that, again, was done on the gel plate with metallic acrylics and black. But I think I might have used like a water resist or something to get that really textury pattern on it. And so it has a shine to it because it's metallic-y. And then I had these, this sheet of circles, again, that I had just done some cutout masks and used on my gel plate. And just some scribbles I had done on a piece of deli paper as well. So, you know, I'm probably going a little bit crazy with the textures on this one, but again, I did want these all to look different. So, you know, this is my playtime. So I figured, what the heck, we'll just go with it and see where it takes me. And the black was just like too heavy, so I decided to cut those out. This one I kept very monochromatic. I just kind of kept it black and white, and then just those areas of metallic gold. I think there's a richness to sometimes doing monochromatic things, and maybe just having a pop of color here or there to accent it. But I really like doing black and white collages or monochromatic collages. I think there's kind of a sophistication to them because you have to think a little bit more about value and placement of things. Sometimes, you know, having too much color just makes it look a little scattered. But doing something where you're using black and white only really forces you to think about the values and the types of marks. And, you know, in this case, I had paper that was hand created marks and gel plate marks and cut out, you know, masks. So there was, you know, torn edges and more organic shapes. And then these really, you know, hard-edged cut out circles that got added on top. And I really like that interplay of those different kind of, I don't want to say textures, but edges, right? Having some organic edges and then also some more finished hard edges. I think that's also why I like to add asemic writing and that sort of thing in a lot of my collages as well, because I do a lot of them as torn paper, so they have these nice organic edges. But then the writing or something that looks like writing adds a little bit of, I don't know, structure or maybe purpose or something to them that's just a little bit different. And I just pop in a little corner of color, of the metallic color up there. And I figured I would also add a little bit of the writing to this one, just on that very, very far edge over there. There's already a lot of texture there, so it really becomes very subtle when you put it over, you know, that textured area. All right, so on to collage number 3. So I had this really bold sort of gold piece of paper that I had done that used the circular mask like I used in the second collage, but it was the negative, so the circles were white and the background was dark. So I thought I would use that piece to start with, and then go with something even brighter in the oranges and reds. And again, you'll see I pulled out some of that black, much stronger though, kind of writing. And that was actually a piece that I got in a pack of papers that I bought a while back, probably through Amazon or at one of the craft stores. But I think all of the rest of the papers in these collages are papers that I've made, either on the gel plate or through other processes. I think I finished this maybe in like late October, early November, so I think I was still in the autumn vibe here, because I found this piece of collage paper that I had done that had these leaves and all these sort of nice bright autumn colors on it. And so I decided I wanted to use that. It was also really different than the other two. So my goal here was to do four little collages that really were different, all different from each other. I have an old book page here too. So I think I've got most of the base pieces down the way I like them. And now I'm just thinking about, you know, another layer, like what would I put over the top? Just to kind of tie all of those shapes together. So I'm going to go ahead and get those glued down. I was good with the placement of those. And I just did a quick little tick mark there for where that book page needed to start so that I got it in the right place. Sometimes once you get these laid out, if you have a lot of pieces, it's good to take a quick snapshot on your phone or something to refer to, because I've found that I forget the order of pieces, or I put one on and then realize the other one needed to go under it. So like here, I decided I wanted to put the text underneath there. So I had to sort of peel that piece back up and tuck it in there. It wasn't too bad. And then I really thought it was probably just too much. Didn't want to cover up that whole bright yellow piece that I had behind there. But you'll see once I got through that first one, which took me a little while, you know, the next three went fairly quick. So sometimes I just have to kind of get in that groove of, you know, head space where I can see things and can move much quicker. Sometimes getting started just takes a little while, and that's okay. So I have a little bit of this book page left, again, that I thought I might continue off to the left there, just to sort of continue that visual of the book pages below there. And then I ended up actually putting it at the top, so it kind of created a sort of a semicircle in that corner, which I liked. I originally was going to glue it to the left there, and then I changed my mind. But I do think that space needed a little bit of something, so I just cut out a small bit of the writing and added that there. And then I had one little bit left, and I decided that it probably could get tucked in the collage at the top, again, to just sort of finish off that black line, but not a solid black line, right? So it visually connected those. All right, time to move on to the final collage. So this collage paper is something I made. I basically took some tissue paper squares and embedded it between two pieces of white tissue paper. So I basically made my own patterns, and you could overlap the tissue paper, or I just spread them out so that I had white gaps in between, but you certainly could overlap them and make almost like the stained glass type of paper. And because I had this turquoisey color, which is almost it's like a complementary color to orange. I mean, it's not blue, but it's in the blue family. So I decided to stick with the sort of blue and orange theme to this one. And I liked the idea of having these little tiny dots with the bigger squares of color. I like that interplay of those two different shapes. I'm just trying to figure out how to get the square piece in there in a way that I like it. I finally ended up just cutting out another piece where I had full squares to play with. Instead of having one edge that was straight, that kind of forced me to have to put it on an edge somewhere. So this was a little bit easier to put in there and play around with. And then I wanted a bright color at the top. Again, this is very summery feel, a lot of summery colors, bright blues and oranges and yellows. Kind of beachy feeling. All right, so I was happy with that as the base layer. So I'm going to get those all glued down. And I'm just thinking about how much I want, you know, that to get overlapped with the yellow or the blue to overlap the orange. I know I'm going to be adding a few more layers, so I didn't really worry about it too much. I just made sure that there was some overlap because I did want the blue on top of the orange. And I decided I wanted to transition that blue edge a little bit so it wasn't quite such a hard edge. And then I finally put the sort of the star of the show piece on. And then I just thought I needed just a tiny little bit of texture in that upper right corner. And I just overlapped that orange piece just a little bit because now that's sort of another layer. It just gives it a little bit more depth. For the final piece, I was just trying to add a little bit more of that brighter orange to kind of continue that tissue paper square motif I had kind of going. So this creates a nice kind of arched pattern across the collage, which is a nice composition. And that's it. Now it's done. The very last page.